Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our very first podcast for 2025. We thought we would kick it off together, seeing as we're here visiting and spending some time here on the beautiful Northern Rivers.
We are.
Before we're both back at work.
I know.
And of course, as we do when we come together, we love a little bit of co-creation.
Yes, we do love to co-create. Yes.
And we were sitting here just a couple of moments ago. It's very spontaneous. We thought, let's just jump on and let's have a little discussion about the energy that is about to meet us as we step into 2025. And of course, time is an illusion. So we're moving through this space of consciousness. And astrologically, I'd love to hear what your insight has been for 2025.
Well, we hear a lot about particularly the Pluto affecting. I'm not an astrologer, by the way, John, you know this, but I studied astrology a long time ago. And I used to do astrology a long time ago, but no longer up to date. But please be aware that there's a lot of talk about Pluto in Aquarius, and it's going to be here for 20 years, and that's going to bring these huge changes. And really what Pluto does is, and it's important to understand this on a consciousness level, not just on a astrology level, is that Pluto is the god of the underworld. It's the god of the shadows. It's that energy of shadow, which we talk about a lot. And as a collective, what is the shadow? The shadow is the unconscious energy that we have created that is still not resolved to the light. It's energy that is still sitting in its shadow or its darkness that is still not resolved to the truth of its light. And, let's talk about humanity. As a collective, we're certainly not resolved to the truth of our light. And I know all of you want to be. And there's this whole belief that we're all going to happen and it's all going to happen like that. But the issue is that we actually need to work through the shadow realm of our being. So when Pluto goes through the shadow realm, we've just had it through Capricorn. So it's going now through Aquarius. But in Capricorn, of course, it was talking about, the worker climbing the goat, climbing the hill, hard work. You have to put in all the effort, all of that stuff that became very embedded in our psyche. But it also brought up all the shadow of that, all the resistance to that, which, we don't want to have to work so hard. We don't want to have to sacrifice so much. We don't want to have to make things so difficult for ourselves that we never actually get to the top of the mountain that we're climbing. And in truth,
we don't need to.
We don't need to, nor do we need to climb the mountain. So a lot of that came up. But now Pluto's moved into Aquarius in the age of Aquarius. So it's that double whammy. And it's really understanding that age of Aquarius is opening our consciousness. And everyone's talking about liberty and freedom and all of this sort of stuff, which Aquarius is attached to. But Aquarius is also very attached to technology. AI is coming into a profound effect right now. But what we're going to be looking at and what we're already looking at is all the shadow energy of AI. And it's going to be there for us in our faces, and we've got 20 years of that. So, but it's also going to bring up all the energy of what does freedom mean to us, And of course, what is it about freedom? Freedom's about control, isn't it? It's about, are we being controlled by outside forces? Or are we being controlled by inside forces? What's the shadow energy of all of that? So parts of that energy of Aquarius is going to come up in that shadow energy that we're holding as a collective. And we're seeing that very clearly now in the world. Peace, wanting that peace, wanting that energy of peace, wanting to find that stillness, wanting to find that clarity, but also the issue about differences. Aquarius is, has very big ideals, very idealistic. That whole energy of when we're very idealistic, we're very attached to those ideals. And how dare anybody question those ideals, and that's what's happening. And that shadow energy is going to come up big time. What creates wars? What creates wars between people? Differences.
Differences, our attachments to those
differences. To those differences. Our desire and need for others to want others to be like us. I believe this. You should believe it too, shouldn't you, Joe? There's no way you should
Yeah.
believe something different to what I believe. This sort of thing is going on. This creates war. This creates chaos. It creates combat.
Mm.
And we're also seeing this, the shadow energy of this completely running amok through our human collective. Why? Because it needs to come up to be looked at. The shadow will always present itself when we're ready to bring it back to its light. Yeah? And that its light is not your truth. Its light is not what you think it should be.
Yeah.
We're talking about the light of source. And it doesn't depend on somebody's ego, what that is or is not. Your ego or anybody else's. Because your ego doesn't really know what the light of source is all about. It's learning.
It's learning and discovering.
It's learning and discovering. And if it's your ego is attached to only one pathway, one way, then of course it's never going to learn. So, and that's going to come up for you as well, that shadow part of you that doesn't want to shift, that doesn't want to change, because Aquarius is all about change. But the fear of that change.
The fear of that change, one of the things that I did,
huge.
You know, towards the end of the year, as we came into the new year, was I sat and I actually reflect on the beliefs that I was holding that I feel to my conscious awareness are limiting me in some way, because that's my shadow. That's my shadow consciousness. Any part of my mind that's not open and willing to take on a different perspective, another point of view, a different ideal, doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but the moment I shut it down because it either triggers my own lack of sense of security,
and your shadow,
my shadow, my identity through the shadow. And for those, you know, who may be tuning in for the very first time, you know, the shadow is an energy. It's an energy, and we call it an aspect of oneself that, how do you know when it arises? Because we go into reaction. We're triggered.
That's how you know you've got a shadow.
And we all do that. There's nothing wrong in that. In fact, it's an opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity for growth and discovery of yourself. And if anyone listening is keen to walk the spiritual path, which of course, as Ishtar has always said, the spiritual path is a path of connecting to your spirit, a willingness to understand who and what you are, and then deepening that connection. So this year of learning to lean into the shadow, learning to lean into the discomfort.
Yes, because shadows can make you very uncomfortable. And because they do trigger you and there is a reaction. And then there's this stuff going on that creates conflict with somebody else. Because, you know, that shadow often wants to be heard. It wants to be heard by others because you're not listening. So it's going to go to others and say, you listen to me, Joe, because I want you to hear me. But Ishtar's not listening to me, so I want you to hear me. And this goes on all the time. And it's very loud. And we see this constantly in the human collective all the time, you know, even right down to political leaders, you know, spiritual leaders, you know, our teachers, our parents, all of those things, our kids, you know, all of that are all wanting to be heard in some way. And the thing is, the ego wants that to be heard to identify themselves. But you, as a soul, need to be listening to what's being said here, so that you can come to understand yourself, because that's what the spiritual path is all about. It's coming home to self, not coming home to somebody else. It's coming home to self. And, you know, at times we need to meet all the parts of ourselves. And the Aquarian consciousness of this Pluto energy and all the other planets that are coming in are really going to bring that to the fore. And it's going to ask us, are you going to listen? You know, are you going to gloss over this and glamorize it and make it into, it's all going to be magical and everything's going to change for the better, which it will in the future if we look at the shadow. But if we ignore the shadow, then nothing will change. And Pluto is going to bring the shadow of Aquarius. All the attributes of Aquarius is going to be highlighted through its shadow.
So it's going to show you where you're bypassing in your life.
Yes, bypassing. Good
And,
words.
and again, how do we know when we're bypassing? Well, because the same lesson keeps coming to you. Maybe dressed up in a different, package. In other words, you're having similar experiences, similar energy. Maybe it's, constantly getting angry through what's triggering you.
Yep.
And it's something different each time that's making you angry. But the commonality there, or the common denominator, is the anger.
Yeah.
And so not to bypass that.
No, and pointing the finger at others, blaming them for your anger or your control or your imprisonment or your fear or whatever it might be.
It's
and
bypassing.
then it's bypassing. When you start blaming others, you're pointing the finger. Oh, Joe, it's all your fault that I feel this way.
Again.
I know, again and again and again.
So, it's so important whilst what we're speaking about is very important. It's also really important to bring the light in.
Yeah.
And not, we can get bogged down in the seriousness. And whilst it's serious, it's so important for us to meet our shadow with our light. And sometimes, as we've just done, by the humor.
Yeah, a little bit of humor is always good. Don't take it too seriously, but be understanding that it is important for humanity to work with this shadow energy. We have 20 years to do it, and I can guarantee you, we'll be really pushing that boundary of the 20 years because we're struggling with it already. We're already struggling to do it. And the thing is, why is it so important for humanity to look at this? Why can't we just bypass it and go into our light? And it's going to be amazing and miraculous, and this is going to be a big year. Yeah, it will be a big year, but it's going to be a big year for shadow. And if we're not looking at it, then humanity doesn't grow. And so we continue to play out the shadow. And we continue to play out the shadow of Aquarius. And that means the collective won't grow. And I can tell you this, that the masters have told me that humanity is at a crossroad right now. This 20-year crossroad, that's a blink in an eye. And it's so important for us to recognize what we're creating, what we're not co-creating with, what we're resisting, what we're being blind to, what we're bypassing. It's important for us to recognize that and not to go blithely on our way thinking that it's all going to be light and love and we don't have to do a thing. The thing is, we are asked to do something. We're being asked to step up. We're being asked to look at what humanity has created on this planet. And are we going to continue to do it? Or are we going to step up? So we have an opportunity. The question is, what are you going to do with it?
Please remember, manifestation is a co-creation.
Yes.
So sitting by on the sideline, passively watching, hoping it's just going to materialize for you, it's probably going to mean that you're going to sit and become more and more frustrated. So the Ishtar channel this year has got some really wonderful new gifts that we will be sharing throughout the year, which we're very excited. So just watch this space. And one of our key focuses this year is actually to bring to you through our podcasts, but also through our other means of service, are tools and opportunities for you to learn how to work more consciously with your energy, with your shadow energy, but most importantly, to connect more deeply with your light, so that when that shadow energy does come through, and it can feel like it, at times it can feel debilitating. Well, to lift the heaviness of that, we need to learn how to connect with our light.
Yeah.
So this year, it really is a deepening of what we can offer to you through our podcasts, what we can offer to you through our courses, and a few other special invitations that we have
we've got coming,
and all are intended to support you this year to meet the energy that we've been speaking of.
And I just want to add one thing, Jo. Can I just add one thing? What's really important, I believe, for everyone to remember as we move through this time, it's not just what we've talked about, but one of the biggest things is let go of your judgment. You know, judgment is something that creates such conflict and so many differences. And it's not just with others, it's with yourself. When you're judging yourself, then you're stuck. You become stagnant. And there's just resistance that comes up and you cannot grow. And when you're judging others, it's the same thing. You can't grow. And if humanity's judging each other all the time, you know, I'm better than you, you're better than me, you know, you're wrong, I'm right, I'm good, you're bad, all of this stuff that we do through our ego all the time, that's all this judgment. And it creates such stagnant energy in the heart of humanity. So whenever you go into judgment, please take a breath and let it go. Let it go. Let go your attachment to it. If I had any more powerful key to give you, I can't do it for you, but I'm going to ask you to do it for yourself and for everyone around you. Really work this year to let go of your judgment.
And that's a really important key that Ishtar has just shared with you. And it requires you to really, first of all, ask yourself, what is judgment for you? How do you know when you're actually in that energy? And it can be such a handbrake. Self-sabotage is that handbrake. And judgment is one of the very first steps towards handbraking yourself. And I really, please take a moment, adhere to what you've just heard Ishtar speak to, and really consider to yourself, you know, I hear lots of people say, oh, I'm not judgmental. Well, I'm sorry, you know, if you're human and you're breathing, you are. It's
part of our nature.
Part of our nature, part
of our ego. It's part of the ego.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's part of here to teach us about ourselves.
But let go of the judgment of your judgment. You know, it's so important to do that. Don't think you need to be judging your judgment, because if you're saying I'm not judgmental, it's probably because you judge your judgment. And, you know, let go of that, because you're not here to be perfect. You're here to grow. You're here to learn. And that's so important. And so, you know, everything that comes up to meet you, every challenge, every shadow, every experience is something for you to learn. It's an opportunity to grow and to learn. And if you're judging it, if you're critical, you're judging it, you'll never learn, because you're not open. As soon as you judge something, your heart closes. Truly, as soon as you judge something, the heart closes. Consciousness shuts down because you're in lower vibration. So you can't receive the wisdom you're here to receive. You don't grow. So remember that when you're judging yourself. Let it go. Let it go.
So thank you for joining us for our first podcast of 2025.
Yes.
We're excited, as I said, for what is to come and what there is for us to share with you to support you further. That's our mission and our purpose, to help uplift your consciousness and to help you learn and grow and be all that you are. So we look forward to sharing more with you over the coming weeks. Any last words?
Blessings to you all, and let 2025 be a year of growth and opportunity, so that we as a collective can truly remember the light that we are.
Thank you,
everybody. Blessings.